Lead us not into temptation. Now, back in 2017, there was a lot of news about Pope Francis wanting to change the words of this petition. In reality, he was just pointing out how difficult it is to translate this petition. He said that "do not let us fall into temptation" is a better translation than "lead us not into temptation," because that gives us the impression that God our Father tempts us. And as it says in the letter of St. James, no one experiencing temptation should say, "I'm being tempted by God," for God is not subject to temptation to evil, and he himself tempts no one. All right, let's say you're sitting at the dinner table after a huge meal, and you see this chocolate cake on the kitchen counter, and you are just so tempted to eat that delicious dessert, even though you're stuffed to the brim with food. Now, two things can happen. Either you give into that gluttonous appetite and you overeat, or you take a moment to stop and realize that even though it looks good, it's not actually going to be good for you. You realize that it's a temptation. The same applies to all sin. Nearly all sin appears good, but is actually bad. We need to remember that sin is not the result of God leading us astray. Rather, it's the result of us giving in to the disordered desires of our fallen nature. While Satan can tempt us into believing that something bad is good, ultimately we're the ones who make the decision to consent to that temptation. And so we need to constantly pray that we may discern between being tempted on the one hand and consenting to that temptation on the other. Temptations are unavoidable, and they're part of every spiritual battle. And as the Catechism says, such a battle can be won only through prayer. So this week, consider what are some of the things that you've been really struggling to give up in Lent and throughout your life. As you meditate on these words, ask for the patience, prudence, and strength to overcome every temptation so that you'll no longer be a slave to your sins, but find true freedom in doing God's will. Until next week, enjoy the desert.